Hello, this is the Artfolio Extra Credit Project, Week 2, Team Retrospective. Today we're going to go over the 4 assigned bullet points, and instead of just going through a list and just have each of us talk kind of stagnantly, we're going to try to make this more of a discussion. So, starting with the first question, what went well in the previous weeks? There haven't been many weeks so far. This is, like I said, only week 2, but I think our teams have made good enough progress and uh, team building procedures and format styles so far. Uh, First off, we were all on time for every meeting. Thank you guys. We didn't have to spend too much time, sitting around waiting for select people to show up. Everyone agreed on a set time. We all showed up um, at the agreed upon time. We were also able to figure out team rules that everyone agreed to. We divvied up tasks. We agreed to work on which software, to use which websites or apps for meetings and for contact. And there's also we all were able to go through that team rules assignment yesterday fairly quickly. So very proud of us. Very happy with our progress. Communication was established quickly and efficiently using Discord and Microsoft Teams. I'm glad, there was no arguing over, oh, we should use GroupMe or WhatsApp or Canvas chat or whatever. We all just kind of said, this is my preferred method of communication. Is everyone okay with it? And we were all okay with it. So don't want to spend time on stuff that could be resolved really quickly. And I'm glad everyone's been really responsive on Discord and Microsoft Teams. Everyone's been
Mhm.
volunteering to quickly, turn in assignments, to quickly post links in chats and start meetings, etc. We were all able to collaborate on the conceptual design document and submit it on time, along with every other assignment. We've all had these meetings that are generally good enough time. We've all submitted the assignments hours before the deadline, so relatively low stress meetings. Remember the first one was pretty long, but we were able to get what we need to get done, and I'm very happy with that. We were also able to build a satisfactory prototype UI for yesterday's assignment for an earlier assignment, and the professor took note of that and liked it. Thank you, professor. We appreciate all your comments and edits on the assignment, and thank you guys for uh, working with me to create that. That was really fun building that in Google Slides and having everyone work on separate documents. Just more organic teamwork and collaboration. You'll love to see it. And kind of went over this already, but tasks and roles were divided between team members very efficiently. We all just stepped up to the plate and said, okay, I'll take this task, I'll take this task. I'm good at this. I have background in this. I'll do this. It seems like the collaboration and the discussion has been very fluid and organic so far, and I'm really happy with that. Do any of y'all have anything you want to add?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to go?
You go ahead, Blake.
I just like in general how we're able to challenge our ideas. Usually, in other teams I've been a part of, it's like pulling teeth, trying to get someone to agree with an idea or see where you're coming from. But with this team, I feel like we're very able to challenge each other and not feel bad about it after. We're doing it in a very respectful manner.
Agreed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I was going to say
Yeah.
something actually very similar. I'm really happy with the progress we've made on our logical design so far. I think that just the way we've been able to collaborate as a team has led to some pretty great products so far, and I'm excited to see how our project ends out.
Yep. And I think because all of us are, collaborating together and are present at the same time when the discussions are happening, is really helpful in giving us that head start. And all of us can actually figure out the difficulties that we have within the ERDs or any other entities and everything. And because it's discussed together, we're able to resolve it and, get ahead of the obstacle that we're facing. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, if we don't have anything else to say about what went well, I can start talking about what went wrong. First of all, I know in this bullet we were supposed to talk about if anyone is not participating, and that is not the case for any of our groups. So it's a good sign there. I know that as any first draft, our first prototype had some holes in it for our database design. I know we can talk about that a little bit more in the what we learned section, but like I know we had some holes in terms of ownership. We had no like ID key for who owns an art piece and things like that. I know that, and we're also different difficulties with trying to determine how to represent a transaction that includes more than one art piece. A couple of just different holes like that that we did have to work around after we submit our conceptual design as we start to work on our logical design. But like we just talked about, teamwork's been pretty good, and so because of that, I think that we won't have any problems fixing up a lot of those holes. Another thing, the very first time we met as a group, we worked on some assignments. It took us quite a while. No, nothing really specific to say about that other than just kind of we've all kind of agreed we're like, hey, we want to start working a little bit earlier now. So yeah, just starting to learn and that we should wanting to work ahead a little bit more has been good. Another difficulty is I know a lot of us have busy schedules with work or extra classes.
Yeah.
So it does make it a little bit more difficult to schedule meetings, but I mean we're getting it done, so no major hiccups there. But that is just something that we have in the workaround. So with that, if anyone else has anything to say.
I'm just glad, all of us like decided that because all of us are working, we just decided I think we're gonna meet weekdays after 5. So I'm glad
Yeah.
everyone just decided for that. It's pretty helpful, it helped balance out the work and the course burden that we have. So that's pretty smooth and good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad with the meeting schedule too, because it definitely comports with the agile style that we're going for in this project. So
yeah,
I'll go with the meeting too.
Makes sense.
Moving on, we'd like to talk about what we learned so far. So currently in our conceptual design, our art pieces did not have an ownership track to them. So to change that, we decided that it needed an ownership ID in the form of a user. So how this would work is maybe a patron wants to buy an art piece and display it in our museum. So his user ID would be attached to the art piece so that each art piece has an owner. And obviously, if the art piece belongs to the museum itself, or I guess the owner in this case, would have his own ID. So we could track if the art piece that we have in our museum is currently owned by the museum or a user that is assigned to them.
Basically, you're going to make like an ID for the museum itself.
Exactly. So we could track that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Determining user roles, we decided that patrons could be buyers. So they would have the ability to go to a page on our application and buy a piece of art. And so this piece of art, since they are a patron, would be displayed in the museum. But obviously that ownership would be tracked to them via, like I said, the user ID from before. And also we decided too that there would be non-buyer users within our application. So those are people just going into the museum trying to view a piece of art. So for instance, maybe they go to our application, find some information about the art piece, and then actually go to the art museum in person, right? Because they want to see what art pieces, that's present at the museum. Mm-hmm. Also, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, the reason why we didn't have an owner ID or the mindset of buyers versus non-buyers is we kind of didn't expect viewers of our application to be able to buy and sell art pieces. We kind of treated this as like an art museum. Usually visitors to an art museum aren't able to just purchase art pieces on the spot. But then we realized, we want to establish a sort of patron relationship, and patrons can of course donate art pieces to museums or sell them. And also, even if we were of the mindset of, okay, only museums can buy or sell from our museum, the museums themselves would still have to have identification and still be treated kind of like users in the first place. So we decided, okay, just allow users to buy and don't allow some users to buy, and that just makes things much more fluid and less convoluted, I suppose.
Also, another thing we were discussing is the use of a cascade delete. So currently in our system, a creator, if they're in our database, has to have at least one art piece associated with them, right? Otherwise, they're not a creator. I mean, why would we store their data if we don't have any art pieces associated with them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So because of that, or as a direct consequence of that, we thought that a cascade delete for art pieces when they're being sold in the terms of taking out their owner data also as they're being sold could be something that we could go with, or that's the direction we think is best for the project. So for instance, Da Vinci is in our database. He made the Mona Lisa. If we were to sell the Mona Lisa to someone, we would take that Mona Lisa art piece out of our database because it's no longer with us. And as a result, since now Da Vinci has no art pieces associated with him, he would also be cascaded deleted from our system. Only when art pieces for their creator goes to zero, obviously. Anything you guys want to say about that?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I want to
Jaden.
add to that in the event that Leonardo da Vinci has another piece added back into the database, whoever adds in the database, be it a patron or museum, we will ask them to manually input, whatever attributes we had assigned to the creators in our database. So previously, we would have any art piece that we had by default. We would just put in the information about them, their attributes directly in our code, and so there would not be any interaction with the viewer in that case. But whenever a viewer is adding like a new piece of art from a creator we haven't had yet, then manually inputting information about the creator will be necessary. There isn't a way to go around that. It's not like we can just like pull
store past data,
or store, or even more like storing previous versions of our database to try to get back attributes information from creators who are deleted. That is possible. That feels kind of a bit ambitious for this project. That's not like a main focus point we want to dwell on. We kind of just want this art gallery-esque application just to be and that be the focus.
Yep.
Source stuff that is currently in the database only, basically.
Exactly.
Also, to add on to that point, we hope to implement a way so if you are adding an art piece that is associated with the creator already in the database, you'll have a drop down. So obviously, you're only going to have to input creator data if they're not in our database anymore. But if there are pieces associated with that creator, then just tack on the creator ID and it should be fine. Also, the last thing, I think Kyle touched on it a little bit beforehand, was the transactions. So things that were talked about for our transactions were the thought of either transactions being able to hold multiple art pieces or a transaction only having one art piece associated with it. We decided as a group it's probably better that transactions can have multiple art pieces associated with them so that we don't have 5 transactions for one buyer buying 5 pieces. It seems kind of counterintuitive. So currently in our design process, at least, we think that transactions can have multiple or one, and they obviously can't have 0. So I think we're going to go with that type of implementation in which the primary key would be a composite of the transaction number and also the art piece associated with it, so that if the same art piece is being bought or sold, it would obviously be associated with a different transaction number and therefore be unique. So that's it for everything that we learned so far.
I just want to touch about on the point that how we decided that. Remember the analogy that we had in our previous meeting that if you're in Walmart or something, and imagine you buy 5 items and then having 5 different receipts for each item, rather than having one receipt. So it's always better that you just have one. So I think I just want to mention that how we came down to thinking about why multiple art pieces can be sold within the same transaction ID. So and I feel like it's also better because like let's say if someone tells us like this is my transaction ID, or we could also just look up the transaction ID and just know what all got sold in this, rather than looking at different transactions ID for every patron or every seller. So I think it's just easier.
Yep, definitely agreed.
All right, so last but not the least is our action plan. So I think in our initial meetings, while we were discussing how we would go ahead with the project, all of us need to get familiarized with SQL and a bit of Python Flask. And I want to also thank Blake for putting out a video in the Discord about learning Python Flask, PSQL as well, and maybe subsequently if we need Postgres, a bit of that as well. And then obviously for our front end, a bit of HTML and CSS. We won't be focusing a lot on that because our main focus is our database and creating the right entities and the right relationships. But yeah, we definitely need that. So I think all of us would need to get familiarized with at least the basics of HTML and CSS. And then also, I think one of the next assignments that's due within next week, although we've already started on it, which is the logical design. I hope we can get working on it maybe a bit today, tomorrow. And we also have obviously Tuesday until 11:59, so we should be able to work on it and maybe submit it in time.
Um, Specifically for my action plan, since I am in charge of the art piece entity, I want to figure out for our logical design, a part of it is cleaning up the representation of it. So things like inputting photos of the specific art piece into the database. I need to figure out exactly how to do that. I know that's possible from previous classes. I just need to do research to find out the way to do that. And also format the description of each art piece that will be contained within each art piece entity in a standard way. So maybe I'll start with saying its creator, then the year it was created, maybe a little bit about the creator's birthplace, stuff like that. So standard ways into format the information and then a small description afterwards. Also, I want to help any teammates that need help in the project. I want to be like the main helper guy that the team comes to when they are needing help. Because I've worked with databases before in previous classes, and obviously I'm the team leader, team manager in a way. So,
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Blake. As for me, I'm going to be in charge of the transaction entity, and I hope to create an action plan. I hope to kind of really dwell and consider on what exactly the specific functionalities and fundamentals of this transaction will need, and if more attributes and relationship need to be added. We want to hash out all these specific details about our database format at the very beginning. We don't want to mess up the foundation of our project really late in the game. I also hope to plan out how exactly we want a transaction to be displayed on the UI. Like, do we want to keep it as like a list? Do you want to keep it hidden? Do you want to have like a pop-up menu? Just how exactly do you want to format it nicely? Because so far the aesthetic we've gone for is pretty airtight. I feel like just suddenly like showing a transaction history might be a little bit jarring. See if we can try to make that feel a bit more seamless and
remember,
organic.
Jaden, we were talking about how we wanted display of the transaction to only be the admin. So if you're the owner of the museum, you could look through, oh, what have we bought? What have we sold recently? And go through the page that displays that type of information.
Yeah, so yeah, I also want that to like fit the I guess the feeling and the aesthetic of what we have so far. I also want to refresh and relearn fundamentals of HTML and CSS. I know this is something that we're all going to be doing, but I specifically have like worked on this in previous jobs and in a class in high school, but it's been a while since high school, so I want to make sure I touch up on my skills in this. Also hope to practicing diagramming tools to make ERDs for better visualization and planning purposes. Like so far, my techniques have been pretty rudimentary, pretty basic. So hope to like shore up on that and be able to better visualize exactly like what we're planning and what we're trying to go for.
And as for me, I'm going to be handling the creator entity. And I think we discussed that we might have to cascade delete the creators once their painting. If there's only like one painting left in our museum for that particular creator, we're going to cascade that. So I'll just need to get a bit more understanding on how that would exactly work within our database. So I'll probably look into how that functioning should work.
Yeah. So, and then lastly, my role is going to be taking in charge of the users entity. And I know one of the big kind of question marks around that is we're going to have some sort of roles characteristic related to our users function. And that's going to represent whether or not this user is a buyer patron, a non-buyer patron, or even like a museum to see whether or not these people will be selling art pieces, whether or not they own them. And so I think one thing that we're looking into is how we want to represent those differences. If different roles will have different functionalities, then kind of a subclass, superclass system may be best. So I will be looking into that, hopefully having kind of a plan before Monday, or I think it's Tuesday night when our logical design is due. So I will be helping have the design ready to go for the users when we are working on that. as well as throughout the rest of the project, I'll be implementing the CRUD functions. So just really understanding how those are going to work, especially along those lines of any sort of cascade delete, making sure that we don't have any redundancies, no logical fallacies either. So yeah.
Yep. All right, so I guess that should be good. That was a good team feedback meeting for all of us. I feel like all of us are on the same page about how we're going ahead with the project. We have things discussed out. Everyone has everything clarified, so that should be good. And I wish we have a good week ahead with all the assignments due, and also good luck on our exam.
Yep.
Indeed.
See you at our next meeting.
Sounds good.
Yeah.